Most men today are dying while they're still alive, choked by a fear they can't even name. They have the potential of a king, but they live as slaves to their own insecurities. And here's the scariest part. It's not failure you should fear. It's hitting 80 years old, looking in the mirror and realizing the man you could have been never existed because you were too afraid to try. If you don't want that to be your legacy, look me in the eye, because we need to have a real talk right now. You feel it, don't you? That pressure in your chest the second the alarm goes off. It's not just the physical exhaustion of a long work week. It's the weight of a life that feels smaller than the one you were designed to live. You look around and see other men who seem to have it all together while you're fighting an invisible paralysis. You've got plans, you've got dreams, maybe even a family depending on your strength, but every time you try to take a real step toward your purpose, something drags you back to mediocrity. That something is fear. But I'm not talking about the fear of a mugger or a car accident. I'm talking about a much more dangerous thief, the fear that steals your divine calling. It's silent. It whispers that you're not qualified, that your past defines you, or that if you actually try and fail, the world will finally see you're just a fraud. I'm not here to give you a pat on the back and tell you everything will be fine while you stay stuck. I'm here as a mentor, someone who's been in that hole and knows that the only reason you should listen to me isn't my own wisdom, but the fact that I've anchored my life to the only rock that doesn't shake. The Bible is our survival manual and our blueprint for victory in this war. Look at what it says in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Think about that for a second. The fear that locks you up, that anxiety that makes you back down from a challenge, does not come from God. It's a counterfeit. If that feeling doesn't come from the Creator, then it's an intruder. And if it's an intruder, you have the authority to evict that tenant from your mind. The problem is, most men have handed fear the keys to the house, invited it to dinner, and now they're letting fear decide where their life is going. The truth hurts, but it's the first step to your freedom. You are allowing a spirit of cowardice to rule the territory that should belong to power and self-discipline. But here's the real hope. This state of paralysis is not your final destination. It's just a phase, a trench you've been stuck in because you haven't learned how to fight yet. Getting out doesn't depend on you feeling brave. Courage isn't a feeling, it's a decision based on eternal truth. You aren't alone. Thousands of men are hearing the same lies right now. The difference is, starting today, you're going to stop believing them. But before we move forward, I need you to understand something fundamental. Why did fear choose you to paralyze? Why does it strike hardest right when you decide to be a better father, a stronger leader, or a professional at the top of your game? There's an anatomy behind this paralysis. It's a surgical strike used to disarm men of value. If you don't understand how this trap works from the inside, you'll keep swinging its shadows. In the next chapter, I'm going to show you exactly how fear distorts your reality and why your brain and your soul are short-circuiting. Are you ready to see the anatomy of what's holding you back? The anatomy of paralysis. Why do we freeze up? Have you ever actually thought about it? Usually, we blame ourselves. We think it's a lack of character or that we just weren't born for this. But I want to show you that paralysis isn't a manufacturing defect. It's a distortion of reality. Fear is like a magnifying glass you hold over your problems and a shrinking lens you hold over your own capacity and, worse, over God's presence in your life. Scientifically, your brain is wired to keep you alive, not to keep you fulfilled. It prefers the comfort of the cave, even if you're starving inside, over the risk of the hunt outside. But spiritually, it goes much deeper. Fear is the enemy's favorite tool to make sure the king inside of you keeps living like a slave. Have you heard the story of the men sent to scout the promised land? It's in Numbers chapter 13. 12 men went in, 10 came back terrified. They said something in verse 33 that is the perfect definition of the anatomy of paralysis. We saw the giants there, and we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes. Read that again. In our own eyes. Were the giants real? Yes. But the problem wasn't the size of the giants. It was how those men saw themselves. Fear distorted their self-image. They forgot who brought them out of Egypt. They forgot the plagues. They forgot the Red Sea parting. Fear causes selective spiritual amnesia. You forget everything you've already overcome and who is standing beside you, and you focus only on the shadow the problem casts. When you're paralyzed by a career move, or afraid to lead your home with more strength, or hesitant to launch a project, you're suffering from grasshopper syndrome. You see yourself as too small because you stopped looking at the one who is infinitely bigger. Paralysis happens when I becomes the center of the equation. If everything depends on your strength, your intelligence, and your perfection, of course you're going to be afraid. You know you're flawed. I know I'm flawed. If it's all on us, fear wins every time. But self-mastery begins when you realize your job isn't to be the giant, it's to be the man who trusts the God who fells giants. The anatomy of paralysis is fed by pride disguised as insecurity. It's thinking your mistake is bigger than God's grace, or that your challenge is too big for the creator of the universe. The good news? If paralysis is a distortion of vision, the cure is adjusting your focus. You don't need fewer challenges, you need a clearer vision. A lot of people think the secret of the great men of the Bible, who were the world's greatest leaders, was that they didn't feel that pit in their stomach, that they were made of steel and fear just didn't touch them. If you believe that, I have some news that will take a huge weight off your shoulders, but it's also going to take away your last excuse to stay still. Do you really believe courage is the absence of fear? If so, you've been lied to by Hollywood. There's a myth about the fearless man that is destroying your confidence. In the next chapter, I'm going to break that myth and show you why feeling fear might actually be the green light you've been waiting for to move forward. We're going to understand why the greatest heroes of faith were often the most terrified men on the battlefield. Are you ready to stop waiting for the fear to go away before you start acting?
The myth of the fearless man. Listen to what I'm about to tell you and pay close attention because this could be the absolute game changer for your masculinity. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is taking action despite the fear. We grow up watching movies where the hero doesn't even blink in the face of danger, where the protagonist is an unshakable rock of self-confidence. Then, when real life hits, when the bills pile up, when your marriage hits a crisis, or when you feel the pull to start a new project, you get that pit in your stomach, your palms start to sweat, and what's the first thing you think? I'm a coward. A real man wouldn't feel this way. Brother, that is a bold-faced lie the world told you just to keep you down. Fear is a biological response, and many times a spiritual alert. The problem isn't feeling the fear. The problem is letting fear grab the steering wheel of your life. Look at the story of Gideon in Judges chapter 6. When the angel of the Lord appeared to him, where was Gideon? He was hiding in a winepress, threshing wheat so the enemy wouldn't see him. He was terrified. He was hiding. And how does the angel greet him in verse 12? The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. Pause and process that. God calls the guy a mighty man while he is literally hiding in a hole because he's afraid to die. God doesn't look at what you're feeling in the middle of the crisis. He looks at the potential he placed inside you.
Gideon didn't stop feeling fear immediately, but he acted. He tore down the false altars, he gathered an army, and he liberated his people. He did all of that with his heart pounding in his throat. Do you realize the relief that brings? You don't have to wait for the anxiety to pass to start being the man your family needs. You don't have to wait until you're ready or totally secure to take responsibility. If you wait for the fear to vanish before taking the first step, you'll die waiting. True masculine strength is born the moment you admit, I'm terrified, but I'm going anyway because my mission is bigger than my discomfort. Look, if you're tired of living like a passenger in your own life and you want to become the man, the leader, and the protector your family and the kingdom of God need, smash that subscribe button and hit the like button. We're building a brotherhood of men who have decided to stop running. Join us. The relief is in knowing that God doesn't use superheroes. He uses ordinary men who are willing to be obedient even when they're trembling. The weight you've been carrying of having to look strong all the time is what's burning you out. Drop it. Be honest with God. Say, Father, I'm scared, but I'm taking the step. And that's when His power is perfected in your weakness. Now, let me ask you a tough question. If fear isn't the problem, then what is? If you can act even while you're afraid, why do you still feel lost about what to do? The truth is, many men are paralyzed because they don't know where they're going. They confuse their day job with their eternal calling. They know how to pay the bills, but they don't know why they were put on this earth. There's a code behind your divine calling, a weight of glory that every man carries, but few know how to decode. In the next chapter, we're entering the realm of authority. I'm going to show you the brutal difference between having a career and living out a calling. And I'm warning you, what I'm about to say will place a weight of responsibility on your shoulders like you've never felt before. Are you ready to find out your true weight in this world?
The armor in practice. Here's the deal. We've already established that fear is a lie and that you have a calling. But motivation alone doesn't win wars. You could leave here right now feeling like you can conquer the world, but if you don't have a defensive strategy, the first criticism at work or the first argument at home will knock you right back down. Life isn't a movie where the hero has an epiphany and suddenly everything is easy. Life is endurance training. If you want to activate your calling and keep it burning, you need armor. And I'm not talking about something mystical or out of reach. I'm talking about mental and spiritual tools for your everyday life. Look at what the Bible tells us in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 13. Therefore take up the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Pay attention to that phrase, the evil day. It's coming. Maybe for you, the evil day is today. The text doesn't say if the evil day comes, but so that you can resist when it does. The armor isn't for decoration, it's for when the pressure rises and you feel like throwing in the towel and running back to your comfort zone. How does this work for a man in 2025? First, the belt of truth. In today's world, you're bombarded by lies about what it means to be a man. They tell you that you have to be a predator, or that you have to be a passive, hypersensitive shadow of yourself. The truth is what God says about you. When fear whispers you're going to fail, your armor is responding with the truth. I might fail, but my God doesn't, and I am under His orders. Train your mind to spot the lie the second it enters. Second, the shield of faith. Faith here isn't a warm and fuzzy feeling. Faith is a defensive weapon. It's the ability to not react on impulse. When anxiety hits, the shield of faith is what makes you stop, breathe, and say, I will not make a decision based on panic. A man who doesn't master his reactions is a man without a shield, exposed to every arrow life throws his way. Third, the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word. You need to have verses, principles, and truths memorized, ingrained on your soul. In the heat of battle, you won't have time to look up a manual. You need the truth to come out of your mouth automatically. The training to use this armor happens in the silence. It happens in the first 15 minutes of your day before you even touch your phone. It's the time you spend on your knees, or reading the Word, or simply in silence before the Creator, asking for the strength needed for the fight ahead. If you start your day reacting to world notifications, you've already entered the arena without your armor. The relief here is that you don't need to be a master of theology to start. You just need to be a disciplined soldier. Discipline is the highest form of self-love and respect for your calling. When you discipline yourself, you're telling fear you don't call the shots anymore. But let me give you a real warning. There is something worse than the exhaustion of carrying this armor. There is something much more painful than the effort of training every day. Many men choose not to put on the armor because they think it's too heavy or too hard. They prefer the path of passivity, thinking that if they don't fight, they'll be safe. But the cost of inaction is a price you do not want to pay. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about the darkest part of this script, the cost of omission. What happens to your soul, to your wife, to your children, and to your legacy if you decide to stay comfortable instead of being the man God called you to be? The bill eventually comes due, brother, and it's expensive. Are you prepared to face what happens if you don't change?
The cost of inaction. If you think the risk of taking action is high, you have no idea what the price of staying still is. Fear often tricks us into believing that the comfort of our inertia is a safety net. We think, if I don't try, I can't fail. If I don't put myself out there, I won't get hurt. But let me tell you something nobody else will. Inaction is a cancer that eats away at your legacy while you're still alive. When a man refuses to answer his calling because of fear, he creates an authority vacuum and a lack of protection inside his own home. If you don't step up into your leadership role, if you don't fight to be the man God designed you to be, the world will fill that space. And the world doesn't love your family the way you should. The cost of your paralysis is paid for by the eyes of your children, who look at you and don't see a model of courage. It's paid for by the heart of your wife, who feels insecure because the man beside her is just a shadow of who he's supposed to be. The Bible gives us one of the harshest warnings about this in Matthew chapter 25. It's the famous parable of the talents. A man gave resources to his servants and went on a journey. In verse 25, the servant who received the least says, "I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground." Pay attention to that word, afraid. He didn't blow the money on parties, he didn't steal it, he just stood still. He buried what he was given because he was terrified of taking a risk and failing. And do you know what the master's response was in verse 26? "You wicked and lazy servant." Inaction driven by fear is seen by the Creator as negligence. You were given life, strength, intelligence, and a divine calling. Burying all of that because you're worried about what people might think or what if it doesn't work out is an insult to the potential God placed in you. The cost of inaction is reaching the end of the line and realizing you were just a spectator of your own existence. It's the agonizing pain of the what if. What if I had tried? What if I had spoken up? What if I had the guts to be the man I knew I was meant to be? The good news? Repentance is the first step toward a U-turn. If you're hearing this and it feels like a punch in the gut, congratulations, you're still alive. Your heart is still beating. Your conscience is alerting you that there's still time to dig up what you've hidden. Relief doesn't come from ignoring past mistakes. It comes from taking responsibility right now. You can't change the years you spent paralyzed, but you can decide that today is the very last day fear calls the shots. God isn't finished with you. The fact that you feel this conviction right now is proof that your calling is still pulsing inside you, waiting for a sign of life. The weight of inaction is crushing, but the weight of the glory of living your purpose is what will give you true rest at the end of the day. The exhaustion of a man who fought the good fight, not the exhaustion of a man who ran from the war. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, I get it. I don't want to be this paralyzed man anymore, but how do I get out of this? How do I flip the activation switch? To close this loop and give you a real battle plan, I need you to make a mental decision right now. We're going to talk about the awakening, the moment of activation.
The awakening. You now understand that fear is an intruder, that paralysis is a distortion of your vision, and that the cost of doing nothing is your legacy and your soul. Now the question is no longer, why do I feel afraid, but rather, what am I going to do now that I know the truth? Activating your divine calling doesn't happen at a gala or in some mystical moment on a mountaintop. Activation happens in the trenches of real life. It happens when you decide that God's will is more important than your immediate comfort. The Bible gives us the final command in the book of James, chapter 2, verse 17. Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. You can have all the faith in the world, you can watch this entire video and feel your heart burning, but if you turn off this screen and don't change a single micro-action in your routine tomorrow, your faith is still dead, and a man with dead faith is a paralyzed man. Activating your calling means putting works to your faith. It means taking a step, even if it's small, even if your legs are shaking. Here is your 7-day activation plan. First, the morning alignment. Tomorrow, you wake up 15 minutes early. Before any distractions, get on your knees and say, Lord, I am yours. What do you want me to do today as the leader of my home and as a professional? Hand over your fear and ask for the strength he promised in Timothy. Second, the one confrontation. Choose one thing fear has stopped you from doing this past week, a tough conversation, a project you haven't started, or an apology you've been putting off. Do it within the next 24 hours, not because you feel brave, but because you are obedient. Third, guarding the gates. Every time the thought, I'm not capable, enters your mind, shut it down immediately. Say it out loud, God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power. Don't let the lie take root. The relief here, brother, is that you don't carry the world on your shoulders. The final result belongs to God. Your success isn't measured by how far you got compared to others, but by how faithful you were to the path in front of you. When you start moving, fear loses its oxygen. It survives on your silence. It dies through your action. You were made for more than just survival. You were made to rule over your circumstances, to protect your own, and to leave an eternal mark on this world. The awakening started today, right here in this conversation. But I have to warn you, once you decide to conquer fear and start walking, the enemy changes tactics. If he can't paralyze you with terror anymore, he'll try to neutralize you with noise. He'll try to steal your focus, flood your schedule with junk, and make you waste your sacred energy on trifles. Many men conquer fear but fall short at the finish line because they become slaves of distraction. They have the courage to act, but not the discipline to stay the course. If you felt like today was the day to break the chains of fear, you need to be ready for the next battle, the battle for your time.
time is the most sacred resource God gave you, and how you use it determines the speed at which your calling is fulfilled. To learn how to shield your purpose against the traps of the modern world, I've prepared this next video appearing on your screen: how distraction steals your God-given time and how to master yours. Click it right now. Don't let distraction steal what courage just built. I'll see you there. God bless you, and remember, you were born to be a king, not a slave.